Is the federal government about to drop the hammer on the WNBA? What you're about to hear might be the biggest scandal in women's sports history. A United States senator just fired off a letter demanding answers about Caitlin Clark's treatment. And now even Stephen A. Smith is warning that President Trump himself might get involved. But here's what nobody's telling you. Sources close to Caitlin Clark's camp are allegedly saying her agent might be the mastermind behind this entire federal investigation. If you care about fairness in sports, you need to hear this story right now, because what's happening to Caitlin Clark could change everything about the WNBA forever. Picture this: the most valuable player in WNBA history, someone who increased merchandise sales by 601% and tripled her team's value, is being physically targeted on the court while referees look the other way. We're not talking about hard fouls here. We're talking about what the Wall Street Journal is calling potential civil rights violations. Yeah, you heard that right. The freaking Wall Street Journal just dropped a bombshell article saying Caitlin Clark's civil rights might be getting violated every single time she steps on that court. Let me break down exactly what's happening here, because this story just took a turn that nobody saw coming. Senator Jim Banks from Indiana didn't just write some casual letter to the WNBA commissioner. No, this man went full nuclear. He's demanding answers by specific deadlines, asking Commissioner Engelbert point blank, "What are you doing to protect Caitlin Clark from what he calls excessive physical targeting?" And get this, he's not just asking nicely. Banks is basically threatening that if the league doesn't get its act together, Congress might have to step in. But wait, it gets crazier. Remember when Stephen A. Smith rarely agrees with politicians? Well, he just went on his show and basically said the government has a legitimate case here. Listen to what he said. If the Trump administration can settle with Columbia University for $221 million over civil rights violations, you think you can definitively rule out what kind of noise could be made if the WNBA continues to allow this treatment of Caitlin Clark? That's Stephen A. Smith, one of the biggest voices in sports media, essentially saying the WNBA better watch its back. Now here's where things get really spicy. My sources, and I'm talking about people who actually know what's going on behind the scenes, are telling me that Caitlin Clark's agent might be the puppet master pulling all these strings. Think about it. This isn't just random outrage anymore. We've got senators involved, major newspapers writing op-eds, and sports media personalities all suddenly talking about the same issue at the exact same time. That doesn't just happen by accident, folks. That's a coordinated campaign. And if it's true that Clark's agent is behind this, then we're witnessing one of the most brilliant power plays in sports history. Let me paint you a picture of what Caitlin Clark has been dealing with. 17 flagrant fouls called against players for beating up on her. That's practically double what any other player in the league faces. We've seen her get body checked, pushed to the ground, and even poked in the eye. And what does the league do? They give out some weak fines and move on like nothing happened. The Chicago Tribune, not exactly known for being dramatic, literally compared one of these fouls to assault if it happened outside of a basketball game. Let that sink in for a second. But here's what really has everyone fired up. Sophie Cunningham, Clark's teammate who's basically become her bodyguard on the court, just revealed something shocking on her new podcast. She said that when she was playing for the Phoenix Mercury last season, before she joined the Fever, her team had actual locker room discussions about how they were going to toughen up Caitlin Clark and show her what the W really is. Cunningham, who's a black belt in Taekwondo by the way, earned it when she was just 6 years old, said she gets that rookies need to be tested, but what's happening to Clark is just too much. And Cunningham isn't holding back anymore. She just launched her podcast with The Volume, and in her very first episode, she went absolutely scorched earth on anyone who says Caitlin Clark isn't the face of the league. Her exact words: "When people try to argue that she's not the face of our league or that our league would be where we're at without her, you're dumb as blank." She didn't say blank. If you know what I mean, this is a current WNBA player basically telling the rest of the league to wake up and smell the coffee. Now, let's talk about the numbers, because this is where it gets absolutely insane. A finance professor at Indiana University calculated that Caitlin Clark was single-handedly responsible for 26.5% of the WNBA's $200 million revenue last year. One player, one rookie, generating over a quarter of the entire league's income. Indiana Fever viewership jumped 170%. League Pass subscriptions climbed 366%. App engagement rose 613%. Her endorsements topped $11 million. And how does the league thank her? by letting other players use her as a punching bag. The Wall Street Journal article that started this latest firestorm wasn't written by some random blogger. It was written by Sean McClain, a former White House staffer who worked for Ted Cruz and Marsha Blackburn. This guy knows how government investigations work, and he's saying Clark faces what the Supreme Court would call a textbook hostile work environment. He's citing actual court cases like Harris versus Forklift Systems from 1993 and Texas Department of Community Affairs versus Bardeen from 1981. This isn't just sports talk anymore, this is legitimate legal analysis. But here's the kicker that should make everyone in the WNBA front office lose sleep at night. Stephen A. Smith has sources telling him that President Trump is already aware of this situation and might use it to, as Stephen A. put it, feed his base. Think about what that means. We could have the President of the United States personally intervening in a sports league over the treatment of one player. And before you say that's crazy, remember that Trump's administration just got Columbia and Harvard to settle civil rights violations. The man knows how to use these investigations as political weapons. What makes this even more explosive is what Aja Wilson, one of the WNBA's biggest stars, said earlier this year. She literally said, "It doesn't matter what we all do as Black women, we're still going to be swept underneath the rug." Now she was talking about media coverage, but when you combine that with what's happening to Clark, it creates a narrative that the WNBA really doesn't want out there, that there's racial targeting happening in reverse. And let's not forget what happened just this past May. The WNBA launched this whole investigation into alleged racist comments from Fever fans toward Angel Reese. They spent 2 weeks investigating, brought in all these resources, and guess what they found? Absolutely nothing. Zero evidence. Senator Banks is now demanding apologies from everyone involved, including Caitlin Clark herself, for falsely accusing Indiana fans. He's basically saying, you'll investigate phantom racism against Angel Reese, but won't protect Caitlin Clark from actual physical assault on the court? Sophie Cunningham's rise to fame through all of this is a story in itself. Before she started defending Clark, she had less than 400,000 TikTok followers. After that brawl with the Connecticut Sun where she stood up for Clark, boom, over 1.4 million followers in a matter of days. Her Instagram exploded too. She went from being a role player to being the second most popular player in the league among new fans, all because she did what the league wouldn't do, protect their biggest star. Speaking of that Connecticut Sun game, Cunningham revealed that JC Sheldon actually chipped her tooth during their altercation. She said they literally cracked teeth in the middle of the game, face to face. Cunningham got fined $900 for that fight, but she called it her moment because her social media following went through the roof. That's the state of the WNBA right now. Players are becoming famous not for their basketball skills, but for protecting Caitlin Clark from other players. The former White House staffer McClain made another point that should terrify the WNBA. He compared this situation to when the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission investigated De'Arica Hamby's pregnancy discrimination claims against the league. That was a legitimate federal investigation into the WNBA's practices. Now they're potentially facing another one, but this time with the most famous player in their league at the center of it, and possibly with the president's attention. What's really wild is that other sports leagues have done the complete opposite when they had transcendent stars. The NBA basically bubble-wrapped Michael Jordan. They created rules to protect him. The NFL literally rewrote the rulebook to protect Tom Brady. They called it the Brady Rule for crying out loud. But the WNBA, they're letting their golden goose get beaten up night after night while pretending everything's fine. Rebecca Lobo, the ESPN analyst and WNBA legend, watched film of Clark getting fouled multiple times in a single possession and said every single one of them is a foul. Not some of them, not most of them, every single one. And these weren't being called. Clark absorbed 17% of all flagrant fouls last season, despite being a rookie who missed games. That's not normal wear and tear, that's targeting. You want to know how serious this is getting? The Wall Street Journal article suggested that if evidence shows discrimination, the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division must act. Not should act. Must act. That's legal language, saying the federal government would have no choice but to investigate. And with Trump in office, someone who loves nothing more than a good culture war fight, this could explode into something way bigger than basketball. Here's something else that just came out. Cunningham said that multiple teams, not just Phoenix, had these discussions about roughing up Clark. This wasn't isolated incidents or a few bad apples. This was apparently a league-wide mentality of, let's put the rookie in her place. Except the rookie happened to be saving their entire league financially. The irony here is incredible. WNBA players have been fighting for better pay, and rightfully so. Angel Reese famously said the WNBA doesn't even pay one of her bills. But then, when someone comes along who actually brings in the revenue that could lead to better salaries for everyone, they treat her like public enemy number one. It's like they're sabotaging their own success out of jealousy or spite. Stephen A. Smith put it perfectly when he warned the league, "I support the WNBA. I want them to succeed. I want all these ladies to get their money. I'm just warning them, watch it. Because if Trump gets involved and that base gets involved, because somehow, some way they embrace victimhood on the part of Caitlin Clark, it could be a problem." And you know what's crazy? Clark herself has been nothing but professional through all of this. When asked about the physical play, she doesn't complain. When the league investigated those false racism claims, she supported the investigation even though it was basically calling her fans racist without evidence. She just keeps showing up, putting up triple doubles, and filling arenas. But even she has limits, and if her agent really is orchestrating this federal pressure campaign, then maybe she's finally had enough. The numbers don't lie, folks. When Caitlin Clark plays, more people watch. When she's injured, like she has been for the past several games, attendance drops, viewership drops, merchandise sales drop. She is literally the engine driving the WNBA's growth, and they're letting her get destroyed on the court. It's not just bad for Clark, it's bad for business. If this federal investigation actually happens, and Stephen A. Smith seems to think it might, we could see congressional hearings about the WNBA's treatment of Caitlin Clark. Imagine Commissioner Engelbert having to testify before Congress about why the league's biggest star faces double the flagrant fouls of any other player. Imagine the discovery process where internal emails and communications about Clark get subpoenaed. This could get very ugly, very fast. The bottom line is this: the WNBA is at a crossroads. They can either protect their biggest star and embrace the growth she brings, or they can continue down this path and potentially face federal intervention. And with someone like Trump in office who knows how to weaponize these cultural issues, this could become a massive political story that overshadows the actual basketball. Before I go, make sure you hit that subscribe button because this story is far from over. We're going to be covering every development as this potential federal investigation unfolds. Drop a comment below. Do you think the government should get involved, or should this stay a sports issue? And remember, what happens to Caitlin Clark doesn't just affect her. It affects the future of women's basketball in America. This is about fairness. It's about protecting athletes, and it's about whether talent and hard work actually matter in professional sports. The WNBA better figure it out fast because the clock is ticking and the federal government might be coming knocking.